So, this is a piece about, I mean, you'll all know about this stuff. You tend to get stuck with things that are not your fault, but are definitely your problem. And so one of these things is often insurance has these weird things. You have to excuse the iPad, it's always here making some kind of noise. Insurance often has these weird things which they're clauses that no reasonable person could be expected to understand. And the clauses generally don't occur to you, or you don't find out about them, excuse me getting something up here, that until you have an accident or incident. It doesn't need to be a big incident, but sometimes the actual process of fixing the car, I'm talking about car insurance in particular, is much more troublesome than the issue of the incident itself, especially if there's been just damage. So the thing that happened to my car was the side window got busted. It's an estate, a wagon, as they say in America, in the United States. So my car is a V70, which is one of these old Volvos. And if I just pull up some pictures of a V70, then I will be able to show you what I mean. Images. There we are. There, one of these things. So this is the sort of thing. Okay, so that's a Volvo V70. That thing there. That window there. You see the window at the back? If I just try and do it without touching it, that window right there. That big long window that doesn't open. That is the one that got damaged. And it was the one on the other side, it so happens. But it's that big back rectangular thing that got damaged. It was a quirky thing that occurred, which nobody could be expected to either know was going to happen, or I couldn't have been expected to prevent in any way. Cut a long story short, our situation is that where the next door neighbour is, on one side, they have a little bit of a height advantage, as it were. So they, anything, let's say a football or anything, this doesn't happen for various reasons, but if a football were to bounce off there, it would go quite far on our property because they're a bit higher up. So two guys are working on their garage roof, and they're just, guys working away, but to start with they have to unload a lot of stuff, and this shows you one problem just runs away with you. I wouldn't even say a whole day, but this took months to resolve. So bear in mind, I'm minding my own business. The car is parked stationary on our property. I mean, there's just no issue of any sort. I'm nowhere near it. I'm inside the house. Clear day, great visibility. Okay. It's two guys next door unloading stuff. They've parked in the guy's drive next door and they're unloading stuff. Now there's this height advantage. But in distance horizontally, it's only maybe 5 feet. So this guy, they've put a load of shovels and spades and stuff lying on the ground. And this guy was obviously in a dreadful mood, the tradesman who was working. One guy was putting some ladder up against the garage roof, the other guy was unloading the vehicle. So the spades and stuff and shovels are on the ground. Now if you know a shovel, it's like that. Long blade, long handle, and then a blade like that. Okay, we've all done this. If it's lying a certain way and you step on it, it smacks you in the face, right? Okay, so this guy's got huge rolls of tarpaulin or felt or something, and he's throwing them down. He's obviously had a bad morning. It's only about 9 o'clock or something. He's already pissed off. He throws this huge roll after roll down the ground. Now, apart from anything else, they are going to get damaged because he's throwing them on top of shovels and spades. He finally manages to get the shovel bang on. I heard things clanging and I did have a bit of a suspicion this might happen. But anyway, 1,000,000 to 1 chance, unless of course you put the shovels right there. There is a height advantage, and you're going to throw endless amounts of rolls of felt on top. Probably something's going to ping and something's going to happen because my car's right there. I was just toying with the idea of moving my car, and I was just toying with it a bit too late. One of the rolls of felt drops right onto the shovel. It does a somersault straight through the window of my car. Now, there are several things immediately occur. First of all, I've got to stand there and watch them out the window, the two guys who are involved with this, because of the simple reason, the time it will take me to get out the house, I might miss something. And in fact, it turned out to be quite important not to miss something. One guy's still in the truck, the other guy comes over, sees what's happened. As I watch him, he jumps down and tries to pass this shovel up to the guy while being aware he can't see through the window easily, and it's a bit of a one-way situation because we've got net curtain up. And I am watching him, so his antennae were working. And he passes the shovel up behind him while watching the window, as if you were the window, he's watching the window like that. And the other guy pulls the shovel up. So there is a degree of intent to cover this up, right? I then pulled the curtains back, and I sort of looked out and I thought, I'm going to make clear to them that there is no way that it hasn't been seen. So they've got to either be pretty ballsy to tough it out, or they're going to have to admit that something's gone on. So I opened the front door then, and the guy steps forward and he says, I was just going to tell you. No, I can't say one way or the other. I decided to be generous and say that they were going to tell me and admit to it. But of course, I could just as easily have been out for a walk at the shops, taking the dog for a walk, whatever, at the back of the house. They could just as easily have driven off. I would come and find my window broken. What story could occur then? So I'm not going to go into it. I happened to be there, and the situation was they did cop for it. However, I'm still pretty pissed. The guy next door himself, the neighbour, has nothing to do with this. He was not there any of the time. He has nothing to do with it, right? But I was pretty pissed off because I knew it was going to happen, and I'll just lay out for you what will happen to you if you have this situation. It took 2 months to resolve. 2 months to resolve. It's Christmas time. Even with a company that admitted to it, I still had to ring the company boss up, get him to understand that his guys had done this. He, of course, wouldn't absolutely admit to it until he had a word with his guys. They'll probably have it docked out their pay or partly. There's no point in me claiming an insurance, which of course is the first thing out the guy's mouth. The tradesman, that was the first thing he said. Can you claim for it in the insurance? And I thought, well, my first thought was fuck off. But all I said was, rather magnanimously, was, well, it will be a no claims, and then there's a claim against me, and, forget it, right? The excess is even 300 quid or whatever. Okay, so you get the glass quoted for, right? First company, local company, I think it was 650 quid. It's that rectangle of glass I showed you, and it was 650 quid. So we'll just remind ourselves of what we're talking about. It's that rectangle of glass right there. That one. Right? 650 quid they wanted for pulling out the rubber and the little aluminium rim, and 650 quid. I thought, God, that seems steep even for a Volvo. Okay. So I went to another place, or I rang up somewhere. Some windscreen replacement people like Auto Glass or something like that. Glass repair. Anyway, they said something much more reasonable. So, okay, I've got to extract an amount of money out of them, right? So I can tell this company boss of the roofing company and get him to agree to it. And, I mean, bear in mind I've been pretty decent. I could have just given them the 2 fingers, basically, and said, well, up yours, because you did the damage and there's a 650 quid bill, you won't do that twice. But I didn't. I did the reasonable thing of getting a cheaper quote, as long as it was a genuine part, which it did seem to say Volvo on it, as far as I know. So it's got the tint and everything. You can get caught out with this, because some places will replace your windscreen, for example, and it won't be a tinted windscreen. Even though almost all cars have them. They'll give you a crap windscreen. So you've got to watch. So they replaced it with a proper part. But every step of the way you're having to watch people. Okay, so the guy comes out from whatever it is to replace the glass. Every step of this way, it got as obnoxious as possible. The guy was decent enough, but I'd already swept some of the glass out of the car, and it was just a kind of notch shape like that. Like, it was kind of like that, where the shovel had gone through. So the rest of the glass was in place. And I'd kind of taped it up a bit with a plastic bag over it. Now, if this was me to take this glass out, I'd put sticky tape on it, push it out carefully. Yeah, okay. The guy pushes all the glass inside my car. I don't freaking know why. I wouldn't do that. But he seemed to think the way to do it was to push all the glass in the car. Then when I questioned him about it, he said, well, it was either inside or outside. This, of course, is classic tradesman evasion. There's only two options, mate, and obviously I took the best option. You'd have to be an idiot to take option B. Yeah, but of course there's always another way to do it, and that is to put sticky tape on it and then pull it out a chunk at a time, and then most of it will come away. You drop it on a sheet or something to pollen, and you've got it all collected. So as it is, I've got to brush my car down after he's done the job. And then, of course, there's all bits of chunks of glass that have gone inside my car. So you get it in any vents or down any crevices, there's all these chunks of glass. And we all know the game. If you've ever had a broken window, it's broken into 1,000 pieces. It's always rattling when you go over a bump. And all that sort of stuff. So he does his job. Then he announces he can't do this bit of trim because... Now, the only standard I set myself was, as long as I didn't have to pay for it, I wasn't going to lose my rag over it. As long as it was up to the original standard, I wasn't going to bother about it. Inevitably, of course, right? The guy fits the window. When I go to get the trim fitted, they announce to me, the Volvo people, and this is another 150 quid. They say, oh, well, this has been fitted a bit high, this glass. He's not quite put the rubber in where it needs to be. So it's glued and everything now. So now we have to fit this best we can. And yes, it's not quite flush. And you go, for fuck's sake. Right? Could it be made any more awkward or obnoxious for the person who had no fault of it? But again, it's not your fault, but it's your problem. So the other thing though was the boss who said he would pay for it, the boss of the roofing firm, we had a conversation where the glass got changed out, right? And I said to him, oh, you know, there's the amount. And he said, yeah, I've settled that bill already because I've emailed him a picture of the bill, and he rang the company up and settled the bill. And he said, so he was very keen to close it down. And he said, so that's it now, we're all done, yeah? And I thought to myself, you know, he's so keen to close it down. And the big thank yous and everything. And I thought, let's not do that. He was so keen, I didn't like the sound of it. So I said, well, unless something else comes up, I said, you know, yeah, it seems to be it. And I just left that chink of a way for me to come back. But he would have closed it down there and then that would have been it. So my comeback was that there's this stupid little bit of trim that I didn't know anything about till the glass job got done, you see. Because the guy paid for it in advance so the glass company would come out. And then I find this bit of trim needs to be put on. And of course it's 150 quid, even though it's a £10 bit of trim, right? Volvo prices. And so that goes on as well. And just to round it off, there's just one other thing about this. Most people now have heard of the term schadenfreude, which means enjoying somebody else's misfortune. Now, it doesn't take much in this world for people to not get along, because some people just, that's their normal state. And there's a couple of people in the nearby area who really don't get along. These people made a point of coming past and smiling widely and displaying their obvious pleasure at my window in the car having been broken and it taking months to get sorted. Some people literally can't help themselves. They see that some bad luck has befallen somebody, and rather than say to themselves, that could happen to anybody, they just can't help it. They just jump in and make it as obnoxious an experience as possible. I think to call it childish is to understate how tossy it is to behave like this. I've had this once before. I was involved in a flood, and it was actually quite dangerous because it was up to your chest and there was a big drain and everything, and there was a woman behind my vehicle and she was trying to get some bins or something out of the way, big wheelie bins, big plastic tubs, so there's a danger of me running her over. So I kind of had to go out and help her move the bins just to get her to fuck off. So then I got while I was moving the bins, there's this bunch of kids up on this bridge and they're laughing and joking and stuff. And there's a drain there that can suck you down and kill you. And that has happened. People get their legs caught, the water rises, their leg blocks the drain, you see, when the leg gets sucked down the drain. The whole thing. This woman standing here trying to die. People get carried away with it. One of these people is a social worker. Another one works for the council and is continually dealing with like old people and fixing stuff in the home. And another of these people is a nurse. If you think about the kind of mentality you would like to have in a nurse, social worker, tradesman that works with old people, it isn't the kind of person who smiles and gets a great deal of enjoyment from something bad happening to other people. Right, so this is very simply not my fault, but all my problem. And if you get that, you're going to find what I got initially, which was as soon as I call up the insurance company to say, look, something's occurred, but I'm not going to claim for it. I'm going to get the other side to pay for it. You might think you get thanks for that. I wasn't asking for thanks. I was just letting them know what was happening in case it didn't work out, the guy refused to pay. And, you know, you got the impression that they might try to put my premium up the next year. You just get the impression an asterisk, has been put against your name and, potentially you might have a claim, even though, and this is the second time I've done this, I've caught the person responsible and got them to pay for it. I'll bet that puts me in a minority of about 5% of car owners. And the last time I had a claim, I was sat stationary as well. And touch wood, that was 20 years ago. So I actually have had more accidents in my vehicles while they were sat still, and as many accidents while I was not in them, parked legally and everything. In fact, I've had more accidents while they're sat still and I'm not in them. So it just shows you. You think you don't need insurance for something. Just if it's sat in your driveway. God, the shit that goes on. And I'm like a complete fan, this is my final point, I'm a complete fan of these cameras you put in your car. I don't know if there's one you can get that's a little plus shape and has got 4 cameras on it, but if you can get that, definitely, because you might not be there when that happens to your car. Okay, thanks for watching and listening.